you very much, Dr. Kopka. Who is going to throw out the first question?
It's not so much of a question. I mean, all this what you have said is, all this what you have said is, all that you have said is fine, and it's a process which is going to take time. But some of the American companies, now they have internal audits like Walmart and so forth. They have gone and made sure that the factories providing the products to them comply with certain standards. So in the developing countries, the enforcement and due to bad practices and other reasons which we cannot mention, I mean, we all are aware of, things don't happen. But if the buying companies in the developed countries, where the infrastructure is there, where the rule of law is there, if they pass legislation enforcing the buyers to ensure, to some extent, it cannot be 100%, as you said, to go send inspectors to make sure that these companies, like an internal audit or external audit, to see that these companies are complying with safety regulations and pay regulations, child labor. Don't you think that would be a first easier step to implement than go through the rigmarole of United Nations and all that it would be ideal, as you said, but enforcement and factory aspects are missing. And I've been to factories in China where I saw people working in freezing cold because the government mandate is that heating will be turned on 1st of January. In November, it was freezing cold in Qingdao. We were wearing mittens with the fingers sticking out with PCP coats, and we were shocked. And we, as a US company, told them that if you do that, we will not stop buying from you. So they said it's a government legislation. I mean, what do we do? So it's been a rock and a hard place. I mean, you can't force a company to go against their own government rules of saving energy and not burning coal. Heating to start on January 1, where on the other hand, yes, the US company found it unacceptable and that, people are working in such conditions. My name is Amir Khan. I was born here. I left here when I was 19. I went to London. I did my short term exam there. Then I was working in Luxembourg for a private company, traveling all over Europe and other places. Now I live in California, and I have my own security company based in the US, working with US partners, and we have a branch office in the world.
And you've got a lot of experience in working with people.
And working with different companies in Europe.
And working with companies of
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, of course, we should do, I think the one thing we should do, the things I explained, but there should be other measures, immediate measures also. What is quite interesting, if you look in the case, what happened after Rana Plaza, it was actually America who was really putting pressure on Bangladesh in that case. If it was coming to benefits of least developed countries and paying of customs and stuff like that. That led to a quite interesting effect of the so-called Bangladesh Accord, which had a lot to do with what you were saying, fire inspections, safety rules on working places, things like that, which I think is some of the crucial points where there could be a real working together on those issues. We are trying now, for example, one of the outcomes in Germany of this accord is that our Ministry of Work and Social Affairs, together with the Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, were setting up a funding system, which is a little bit like, in our terms, our social insurance system was starting with a funding on accidents. But not only for giving some money to the victims, but also for preventing accidents that you maybe could also finance fire inspectors out of that, or the education of those institutions and persons and things like that. That is quite an interesting program, which is totally new and is starting, or was starting the beginning of this year. They try really to build up something like a funding system where not only Germany is paying it, but where also other countries where companies can pay in, not the workers, companies can pay in. Also, of course, different countries of the world are invited to participate in that system, to use that really in the prevention of, for example, fire cases or the prevention of accidents in workplaces. I think that's really a practical moment, and I understood it in this way that we should also look at the practical moments really to get rid of the practices like they are nowadays all over. And I think the buying companies have a crucial power on that. They have it. And the argumentation, you surely know, is always the same all over the world. If I start doing it, why should I do if my contract doesn't have to do? We have the same at home if I'm talking to our textile association or whatever, why should we do? So, but I believe, and therefore I'm so in favor of this action plan, that first somebody has to start. On the other hand, you have, of course, to have also discussion on a Europe-wide, international level, also with the states. And I think the states are in some cases better than our European markets. And try really to force the ones who don't want to. So to get this level playing field. I know that's the long-term plan, but on the other hand, you can do, as the example I was mentioning, do a lot in a concrete situation. What's quite important is, I think, also that at the last summit of the G7, we had those delivery chains as one of the important points, which I think is actually quite an interesting thing, because you could say such a technical, specified topic normally doesn't make it in the agenda of big international meetings. So that gives a little bit of hint that there is power behind it, and I'm trying to enforce that, but you're quite right. We have to work on the practical effects, and there we can do a lot in cooperation, in technical cooperation. And I still admit there has to be also the will of the hosting country then.
It is after all one country, so why should there be these differences in pension and other matters?
That's a good question, heavily debated every year again in the Bundestag. That's one day every year we debate it. The starting point has to do with our insurance system. That means our Western system was you pay in a pension fund, a state guaranteed pension fund, and when for the elder at that moment, and when you are getting old, you get money out of that pension fund. Plus or minus, I try to keep the system not complicated. It has its difficulties. When there was the reunification, of course there wasn't in East Germany no possibility. It's not the fault of somebody, but it was simply different. We had to take the whole pension system, for example, over and to pay the pensions for the people who were old in that time in East Germany. At that time, there was a discussion that the costs of living are lower in East Germany, so we could lower that a little bit. A little bit much. Yeah, I know I always get the sign. I'm sorry. That is 26 years ago. That might have been true in the beginning to fill up the funds, to get the system coherent in both parts of the country. Nowadays, where the costs of living are almost the same, or if there's a difference, it's not the difference in between East or West, but probably between cities and countryside and things like that. There's no good argument for having separated or having different levels of the pension system. The only argument is the argument of the finance minister, because to hire the pensions in East Germany, I don't have the accurate sum in mind, but it's something in €1 billion every year, and that's the only argument why it's not done. It's unfair, frankly spoken.
There is a great discrimination when the developed country gives some. It means the main purpose of this discussion, I just believe that discrimination of the poverty and all developing countries. But why the America or the Western country just impose certain conditions while they give some benefit to the third world or the underdeveloped country, especially they just impose some political condition that we will do something, subject you will do something, like civil, for example, civil nuclear programs, because the Americas have extended the facility to India, whereas we have been facing very acute energy problem, and without getting adequate energy, we cannot just nothing. So what is the difference? What is the meaning? What is the criteria of the human rights and the, some guideline? I mean, it's a guideline of the application. What is the criteria? Because sometimes the Western countries and the European countries, they impose the illegitimate government on the name of the democracy, whereas in some other country they just support the most perfect government. This is not a way to just eliminate the poverty. What is the action plan of the German?
Let me point out, Dr. Gupta, that the questioner is a lawyer. It is clear properly, he's a lawyer. He's asked a political question.
Always difficult if lawyers ask you political questions. No, just kidding, because our parliament is full of lawyers, so yeah, it is definitely. One thing I just want to mention before, because I think for me this is important. For me, and I think it's also the understanding of the UN, human rights are universal. It's not a Western concept. It's not a Western concept that I have a right to get to eat every day, that I have a right to survive, and that I have a right to be treated like a human being and not like a slave or whatever. Those things, I think, are universal concepts. And as a woman, I also say, and I say quite frankly, the equality of women and men is not a Western concept. And I even would say it doesn't have anything to do with religion, it has to do with cultural backgrounds, even in our own society. And coming from a quite conservative area in the south of Bavaria, I know what sometimes is taught there. So that is a universal concept, this access to human rights. And if you have those rights not protected, and that's with the UN guidelines, why I was saying the state is every state. And there was a finding of, after 6 years running around the world from Professor Ruggie, the findings is those principles are core principles to every human being, because it's a definition of being a human being, to accept that everybody has those rights to live. If those principles are not guaranteed by states, they have to be forced to do so. Let's put it that way. And that's what this action plan is about, to force the entities, if they are commercial or whatever, to respect those human rights. Of course, as we are all humans, and all our states are consisting of humans, we are not always 100% perfect. I have to admit that totally. And I also admit that sometimes our politics is hypocritical, or is sometimes guided by our own interests, and the interests of all countries and all nations are sometimes more counting their own interests than the interests of the neighbors. That's a common phenomenon all over the world, but that doesn't have anything to do with that the principle is not correct, or we shouldn't go for the principle and for the goal. On nuclear power, I have my own opinion. I would suggest we have a conference today in the morning on renewable energy. That would be anyway the better way to go for. But that is a big discussion. As a whole, on economic cooperation, we have many countries with whom we are cooperating, many countries, and we have a division also in the so-called donor world, with which countries we're dealing, which doesn't have anything to do with preferences, personal preferences or non-preferences to countries, but simply with a being more effective if not everybody is doing everything in every country, which I think also is quite a good idea, but not anything to do with evaluating countries differently, which I am also wanting to admit the real circumstances of single cases I can't judge at the moment.
Adib, you have a question?
contracts can be quite long, and the benefits too, it's more, we can fight about it now. But the investment, that's a decision, a normal national decision of two countries who try to deal with each other. It's not my business. The question of violating human rights, or how to get China on board on that question, is an urgent one because it's a big player. And I've been recently with my president to China, especially talking about human rights. And of course, I admit and I acknowledge that in China they did a lot in fighting poverty in the country. That is definitely true. On the other hand, there are a lot of problems there. You were talking about the situation in factories. We have a whole list of violent strikes in China where people didn't get paid, simply getting paid. They have a big transformation ahead of them. It's coming to the national steel industry, for example. So what to do with all those people who can't find work anymore? So I simply want to say there are core questions also in China, and China has to answer. And that's also a thing I think everybody should take into consideration if you work together. What is the impact in a lot of fields in the country? I'm always in favor to discuss that with Chinese companies, with Chinese politicians, with whomever. I have to admit we were quite clear on the human rights issue in China. We have quite clearly different opinions on a lot of issues of individual civil rights. I met human rights activists, Chinese ones, not sponsored by the West, simply working somewhere, and they were telling me their difficulties, simply to speak out what it is. And that's the thing I think we should point out, because human rights are universal, so we should point out that. And also, if there's, we also work with China, we have also economical contacts or whatever, I wouldn't cut them or whatever, but we should take that into consideration, and we should always have that in our talks, and also in the talks in the UN system, if it's come to those points.
Rights concerns. What did the Chinese say to you? How did they respond?
Well, I can't say everything because there's the news running, and then to really talk about individual cases, and that's the thing we did. I wouldn't do it at home in a mic, and I don't do it here. So we were talking about individual cases also because of people who are sitting in prison, in our opinion, for not doing any harm to anybody. We were talking about the rights of minorities, religious freedom. We were talking about questions like the right to unify as workers. That's a big issue. If you have a country calling themselves presenting socialism, the Chinese right, but you don't have a representation for workers, for example, that they can get their wages. Those core social rights also we were talking about, that was quite a big issue. And of course about things like freedom of press and articulating your own opinion freely. Those were the core points which the President was pointing out in every talk. The response was, yes, you know how official talks are. Of course nobody is admitting in an official talk something, but it was, I think, a good sign that we had the possibility to talk quite frankly, quite openly about it. And I hope that would continue. We're having a human rights dialogue with China, and we're trying to continue that.
No, I was wondering, if you don't mind, I'll address this point. I was wondering whether the Chinese accepted your concept of human rights and said that there were difficulties in implementing them. And if that was so, then what were those difficulties? What was stopping them from implementing what you would consider human rights, which the Chinese may not, but they may also consider the human rights?
I think it's a question of political power, to be honest, frankly speaking. It's a question of political power and who stays in the power, and if a power can accept criticism or think they are threatened by criticism. That's the core question behind it. And of course you find people who can accept or did accept our point of view, even probably also shared it. But on the other hand, of course, the argument was always, we are on the way and we are not so far already. That's coming to the point I was mentioning before with the universality of human rights. It might be possible that we don't have all the same system of insurance or whatever, yeah, or the same system of social welfare all over this planet. But the core values, I think, are quite common all over this planet, and I don't see a hindrance in fulfilling them. So.
Before I come to you, there's a lady over there, a lady from the neighborhood.
There's a threat of radicalization. So will Germany also work together with Pakistan?
Working on de-radicalization together, I think, is always worth doing. So what is quite important for us in Germany, and it's maybe a little bit of difference also to other European countries, but not such a big one. The question is how and where people are living. If they have a chance on integration in the local society, or if they are simply sticking for generations in one quarter of a city, like for us is this case, sticking in that quarter of the city and don't have a chance to participate and that the society gets open for them.
Berufsausbildungsprojekt.
Yeah.
Pakistan,
And
Deutschland.
one thing, thank you very much, General Consulate, is reminding me what we are doing, and that what might also be some aspect of de-radicalization is always education and perspectives. And if you get education and perspective together, that's for me vocational training, for example. And I know we have through GISF, we have very good programs in cooperation in between Pakistan and Germany to give perspectives on a vocational or a professional level to young people. Perspectives for life, I think, are quite important for de-radicalization. So education and the perspective on a life, that's not solving every problem, I know that perfectly, but that is also a key thing, I think. We have those programs, our Minister of Economic Cooperation is very keen on those programs also, and that's something I would happily support to extend those programs.
You know, there's been a lot of talk. Everybody says that if you educate them, you will move them away from terrorism and from extremism. But all the well-known famous terrorists were very educated people. They were very educated people.
Thank you, Your Excellency. This is Akash Koredu, member of this institute. I have a very simple question regarding the issues and opportunities for the diaspora in Germany under the National Action Plan, and also let me resort with the Pakistani National Action Plan. After the APS suicide attack in Peshawar, we have also initiated and established this. So, what type of cooperation Germany and Pakistan will share?
Did I understand you right? The Pakistani diaspora in Germany, or did I get that right?
It's a general.
Like the Turks?
With migration population in Germany. It's a very good question, which is actually not related to that action plan, because that action plan is dealing on business German international companies are doing abroad. But of course we have a big part of our population is coming through the last more than 50 years from Italy, Spain, Greece, Turkey, nowadays from a lot of countries of the Middle East. Also we have a Pakistani, we have South African community. In Germany we have a big community from Eritrea. The question always is why are people coming? That's one thing. In the first generation it was the approach, Germany needed workers and they were inviting them. That was until the 70s. We did a lot of mistakes in that first case because there's a saying in Germany, we invited workers but there were human beings coming. And we always thought, well, they worked 10 years, 20 years, probably the workers themselves thought that, because working, they go back, build something up at home and things like that. But then children were born there, and second, third generation was established. And I think we did a lot of things wrong in that first time. We did some things good. We have some good, perfectly, I don't know, integrated is such a stupid word, but perfectly living together in a lot of communities. I want to underline that also. But we have also a lot of difficulties with people who think they don't belong to Germany, even if there's a generation living in Germany, and stick to totally different values. That's also some question also of radicalization rising. And there are some things which we didn't find well because we thought they were going. They were in the 70s, they were going home. There was even a fund paying them pensions to go back to Turkey or whatever. So what was not happening so well was integration in the schooling, in the local surrounding, and having areas, mixed areas. So I have not the slightest problem with my constituency in between different ethnic backgrounds, whatever, because we are a rural community with people all over the world who are always coming. But you have it mixed. If you have a concentration in certain quarters of cities, it's getting more and more difficult because nobody gets to know the other side. The Germans don't get to know the migrant side sometimes, and the Americans don't get to know the German side. We also have a problem, I have to admit it quite frankly, is especially that a lot of women are kept at home and don't know the language and don't have access to everything which the German state also is offering them. There are problems. I underline that. We try to make it a little bit better this time because that's a second wave of migration which, well, if you look what's happening in foreign policy, you can't say it's unexpected. But for the short amount of time, the number of people who are coming in the last half year, it is somehow unexpected, or we weren't prepared for that. So we try to make it better. We're running short now on German teachers. We are running short on a lot of facilitation. We have stepped up our programs on housing. That's quite an interesting topic. If you get 1 million of migrants in half a year, where to house them. It's not such an easy point, yeah? So we are trying to work on those topics to really get an integrative asset. Of course, you've heard all over, there is also part of the population not very happy with the whole situation, let's put it friendly and diplomatic. So there is, of course, also dispute about security then for both sides. Sometimes the German population and also, of course, for guaranteeing security for the refugees is a big topic, I think, and a big issue we have to work on. So I hope I did answer that somehow correctly. The second part I forgot, that was the second part of the question, I think. Cooperation in between Pakistan and Germany on the case of migration, or? On that economic and business. Yeah, that would be a really perfect idea. When this action plan we are finishing, we try to finish.
Deren Actionplan hat mit Sicherheit zu tun. Und unser ist was ganz anderes.
Okay, so we're talking about, I just learned we're talking about 2 different action plans. Okay, that's something different. I would have been pleased to hear that you have a national action plan on business and human rights. That would be something I really would love to work on with you. That would be something really good when we are finished with our plan in summer. On security, that's a big issue. Of course, we have a common interest that terrorism is not spreading out, and I think there is cooperation on that aspect. Some points, I'm sure you also know we agree to disagree on some points, but we have a common, put it that way, security interest.
Is there a question from the young people here? And this will be the last question.
Karachi University of Political Science Department. There was one report that hundreds of thousands of books were published in Lahore in the last few years. It's a good news that books are being published nowadays, still are being in this the technical era. But on the other hand, we can see hundreds of thousands of schools were destroyed in the Fata, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. In the very small area, like Malakand division in the Fata area, hundreds of thousands of schools and institutes were destroyed. So Germany is also a part of NATO, and the NATO is active rule in Afghanistan across the border near the Fata. So what do you think, and what's your plan for that area? That the radicalists and the terrorists, they are still destroying life and the livelihoods of the Fata people. What's your stand for that? Thank you.
It's a very difficult question because, of course, it's the question of terrorism inside Pakistan. If we would have a little bit more time, we maybe would have to go into the discussion of the reason for the terrorism in this area and how it came. So if you know how terrorism is coming, you probably know the appropriate, or better the appropriate means to fight it. As I was mentioning, we are trying to be part of an international coalition on fighting terrorism. Germany is taking part in some of military actions in the Middle East. For example, we have those tornadoes in the Middle East to ensure that terrorist targets are hit and not civilians, for example. We are participating in those NATO operations in the Middle East. Germany has been part for many, many years in Afghanistan with our troops. I'm frankly speaking, I'm not so fond personally of being with our army abroad all over the world. I think it's a very difficult and dangerous thing to do. Security questions inside a country, firstly, have to be answered within the country and not with everybody else going to that country and trying to assure that. I give the question back to you. Would that be a good sign in the Fata region if the German army is marching in and trying to calm down the situation? I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that. I think we shouldn't do it.
But I would like to use my privilege as chair to ask one question. And that is that in your political spectrum in Germany, is there a move, or is there thinking, or is there some thought of the lines that the foreign labor, which has brought a lot of prosperity to your country, should be sent away now because of this problem of extremism that has gripped Europe?
Yeah, that's also a very good question, and I unfortunately have to answer that with yes. There are people who are thinking in this way. That's unfortunately, I think, an international problem, that you always have people who think their own problems at home can be solved if they identify somebody else as the guilty one. That's an historical phenomenon, and it's a phenomenon in Europe. I'm sure it's in the States, and I'm sure it's also in this country a phenomenon. I heard about something about that also. And it's in the Gulf countries, it's a problem like that, but we have that. I have to admit it. I can't deny it. There are strong right-wing parties in different parts of Europe coming up, also in Germany, have success at the moment at some elections. But I'm convinced, I'm totally convinced that's not the majority of the people, because what you were mentioning, there's on the other hand as many people, or even more people, who really try to give a helping hand and working voluntarily for refugees and try to solve this immense amount of people who are coming and don't know how life is going on further. So there are both sides. That's the honest answer.
Yeah, but if these workers who built up your economy all these years, if for some reason they go away, your economy will be hit very badly. How are you going to manage? So I hope you won't throw them out.
not with me and not with my party, so and not with the democratic parties in Germany. It doesn't matter which one, but there are, what I was mentioning, right-wing parties who are talking about those things. No, you're quite right, and it's true. Part of the wealth of our economy we owe to the migrant workers who are coming to Germany the last 15 years. If you look at simply economically, we make a profit in our insurance systems. That is really, it also is an economical plus for our society. I don't talk about the cultural plus or different other benefits. I always wouldn't like to imagine living in a country where all those people wouldn't have to come. It might be a little bit boring at home, I don't know. But we have, of course, economic benefits, big benefits, and they contributed tremendously, also through tax paying, to pay in our insurance system, tremendously to our society. And that's something which we always try to say. It's not always heard publicly, but I think probably we should say that more often, that there's a big contribution of the wealth in Germany is owing to these migrant workers coming to our country.
Now, I can't resist asking a further question. I'm sorry for imposing this upon the audience. But is there a difference in the payment or the wages that are paid for the same work to Germans and to the migrant workers? Is there a difference?
The difference might be if you're in a company where you have a strong trade union, or if you're a company where you don't have that. If you're in a small, somehow faraway place, it's not only the question in between migrants and Germans, it's a question in between men and women. So we have, of course, inequality in our system, which I wouldn't deny. But the companies, I really have to admit that, it's a few days after the 1st of May, so I may say that. The companies, for example, who are really with industrial, for example, you won't have a difference. They're fighting for everybody for the same wages, it doesn't matter where they're coming from.
I have one comment. No, not a question, a comment. All these refugees from the Middle East and other countries, Africa, they all headed to West Europe. And Western Europe has come under a lot of criticism.
What I'm saying is that all these refugees from North Africa to Syria, they all headed towards Western Europe. Western Europe has been severely criticized for not doing enough. But has anybody ever asked the question, why these refugees want to go to West Europe and not to Russia or China or Middle East countries? I mean, especially from Syria, why aren't they moving to the Muslim countries? Why has nobody asked and nobody wants to talk about it? My second comment is, we are all tiptoeing around China. China is nobody's friend. We can tell you this. We talk to the African countries where they have been, but we all tiptoe around. Western countries are tiptoeing around China. All of us, we like to accept that China is a great friend of ours, but that's not true. Nobody wants to say anything what China is doing to the Uyghurs. Where's the human rights of the Uyghurs? Does anybody want to talk about it?
Well, you know, history has taught us that we do tiptoe, all of us do tiptoe around emerging powers.
No, because they are self-interest. So nobody is asking the question, why all these refugees want to go to Western Europe, and Western Europe has come under tremendous critique, and that's what we want to ask.
Well, I think that you have raised a very relevant point, and I'm sure Dr. Kotla, if you should ever find the time to come to this institute again, please do talk about the refugee crisis, because it is very relevant to understanding of what is happening in the world today. But your session today was sheer delight. Thank you very much. You spoke so well. You spoke so well, and it was, I must say, a session that was a little different from the usual talks which we have over here, because you talked about, you said it's a technical question, but actually these are political issues. And I'm so sorry that you have to go away soon, otherwise we would have had you over for a small roundtable discussion. But don't forget, next time you come, that you're always going to be welcome over here. And hope you have a safe trip back.
Thanks a
This
lot.
is our journal. We'll be publishing it since 1948.
Thanks a
It
lot.
has 70 years of publication. And I hope you'll find the time to read it. Thank you and have a safe trip back home.
Thank you very much. I just say thank you also for the invitation and for the lively debate. We have a small press in Germany. That's